Could the Bahama Resort be sold this year? The Vote No campaign gears up to sue the government over funding, and Hall Pines MP Leslie Miller makes some startling assertions about the lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and gay community. We've got those stories and others. I'm your host, Krishna Virgil, and this is the Tribune's Top 5. Despite the advancement of a resolution to call Supreme Court Justice Indra Charles before the Committee on Privileges, it was revealed this week that this is unlikely to happen. Central and South Eleuthera MP Damien Gomez said he would be surprised if Supreme Court Justice Indra Charles is called before the Committee on Privileges, after being named last week in a resolution to determine whether she and others should be held in contempt of the House of Assembly. While confirming that he still plans to recuse himself as chairman of the committee, Mr. Gomez QC explained that just as parliamentarians were asserting their privilege when they sit in the lower chamber, Justice Charles is also immune from process when she sits in the bench of her courtroom. The former State Minister of Legal Affairs affirmed that Save the Bay's Director Fred Smith QC and attorney Ferran Bethel, who were also named to the resolution, will have to be brought before the committee to determine whether they committed an offense. Mr. Gomez told reporters on Wednesday, following the morning session of the House of Assembly, that, quote, "I imagine that by next Monday, all of these things will be worked out, because once I announce my resignation, my seat would have to be filled in the committee, and I would think that a member of the government would be appointed." He added, "I think on Monday other things will happen, and it will be resolved without her being called." Marathon MP Jerome Fitzgerald moved the resolution last week in Parliament, which also ensures that the committee is provided with funding to obtain independent legal advice if necessary. At the time, he said the resolution was being sought because the recent injunction granted by Justice Charles to save the Bays, barring parliamentarians from accessing or making public the personal information of the nonprofit organization, was an attack on democracy. The injunction was granted on April 21st and expires May 12th. Citizens for Justice, an activist group, has said it will take legal action against the government this week, hoping to force it to provide public funds to the constitutional referendum's Vote No campaigns. Attorney Paul Moss, who represents the group, said on Sunday that Citizens for Justice may request an injunction to prevent the government from continuing to fund the Yes Bahamas campaign until the group's matter is heard, or might even ask for an injunction on the referendum itself. With the vote set for June 7th, opponents are becoming restless over Prime Minister Perry Christie's failure to respond to their request for funds, even as the Vote Yes campaign continues to receive money. In a letter to Mr. Christie sent on April 21st, Mr. Moss set the deadline for the government to make provision for the Vote No funding at April 29th, which was last week Friday. His actions came after Constitutional Commission Chairman Sean McQueenie told the Tribune last month that the government should provide equal access public funds to both the Vote No and Vote Yes campaigns, citing precedents in Ireland. Mr. Moss said the same in his letter to Mr. Christie, which he sent to the media over the weekend. A former BC board member was found guilty of several bribery-related charges. Freddie Solomon Ramsey faces a $10,000 fine and 4 years in prison after a jury convicted him on Wednesday night of multiple bribery-related charges stemming from the Alstom SA Bahamas Electricity Corporation scandal. The 79-year-old insurance executive was stoic when the jury's 4 not guilty, 14 guilty verdicts were announced, some 3.5 hours after Justice Bernard Turner excused the 9-member panel to deliberate on evidence alleging that French company Alstom SA paid more than $300,000 to a BEC board member to influence the awarding of the New Providence Phase 2 and 3 contracts between 1999 and 2003. When asked by the judge if there was any reason why sentence should not be passed against him, his lawyer, Wayne Munro QC, said there was. The attorney asked the court to arrest the jury's verdicts pending the outcome of a hearing on Article 28 of the Constitution on the argument that certain documents essential to Ramsey's preparation for defense at trial were not disclosed. Mr. Munro said there was no prejudice in extending Ramsey's bail, considering his client's medical circumstances that could be verified in a social inquiry report produced for the court's consideration. Justice Turner said that he would, in the circumstances of Ramsey's age and other apparent personal circumstances, extend the $40,000 bail bond ahead of the May 12 constitutional hearing. However, Ramsey was ordered to surrender his passport to the Supreme Court at 10 a.m. Wednesday. He must also report to the Elizabeth Estates Police Station on May 6th and May 9th, on or before 6 p.m. Ramsey was acquitted of 2 counts of conspiracy to commit bribery and 2 counts of bribery concerning the Phase 2 contract. However, he was convicted of 2 counts of conspiracy to commit bribery and 12 counts of bribery concerning the Phase 3 contract. A judge approved a 5-month delay of the government's winding up petition concerning the stalled Bahama project to see what unfolds in the ongoing sales process that has courted 16 prospective buyers. Court-appointed receiver Raymond Winder told reporters after the closed hearing that there was a good expectation the shuttered resort would be sold before the matter returns to court at the end of September. Justice Ian Winder was due on Thursday to hear the petition brought by several government agencies, including the National Insurance Board and Gaming Board, to formally wind up Bahamar and place it into formal liquidation as a result of its inability to pay its debts. However, in the chamber hearing before the judge, a third adjournment was requested in the matter since the government filing last summer. Wayne Monroe QC and lawyer for the petitioners confirmed an earlier report by Tribune Business that the hearing was likely to be delayed again. Mr. Monroe could not confirm if Bahamar developer Sarkis Ismailian was on the list. Mr. Winder, Deloitte & Touche Bahamas managing partner, was tight-lipped on additional details. Tall Pines MP Leslie Miller sparked heated debate in the country this week after he exclusively admitted to the Tribune that he constantly prays for God to end the earth over the existence of a transgender community in the country. Tall Pines MP Leslie Miller has forcefully denounced the growing transgender community in this country while urging people to financially contribute to having this sect of society exiled to their own island to ensure they stay out of the way of generations of Bahamians who are depending on the success of the June 7th referendum. While pledging to give the group its first $1,000 toward the relocation, Mr. Miller told the Tribune that it was his constant prayer that God would come now and just end the world as their actions go against his will. The former Minister of Trade and Industry also dismissed the concerns of Bahamas Transgender Intersex United, which last week made its debut at a press conference calling for equal rights for transgender Bahamians. In response, Mr. Miller said, quote, "If you want to like a man, that's your business, but don't try to impose your will on other people," end quote. On Monday, he said he was of the view that members of the transgender community were currently being treated equally because they are men. Therefore, you go and live like a man. You are a woman, you go and live like a woman. This, he said, was the equality in God's eyes. The comments angered activists. Erin Green, a lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender advocate, said Mr. Miller's campaign to exile transgender people to a private island underscores a severe degree of ignorance regarding LGBT issues, as she raised concerns that the hate speech has incited fear among Bahamians in that community. Meanwhile, lead spokesperson of Bahamas Transgender Intersex United, Alexis DeMarco, rebuked the former Minister of Trade and Industry, saying he was spewing venomous hate that, if allowed to continue, would feed homophobic and transphobic attitudes in the country. Want to get in on the discussion? Well, here's a you can. Just log on to our website at www.tribune242.com, like us on Facebook, the Tribune News Network, send us a tweet at Tribune242, or subscribe to our YouTube page, Tribune242.